Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I'm here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we have a very special guest today. We have Nathan Hartman from the Dreamfinders Podcast. Say hello, Nathan.
Hey guys, how you doing? It's great to be on.
All right, so Nathan is, I guess you would say, a Disney fan, a huge Disney fan.
At this point, I would have to say that that's true. The diagnosis is in, and it's a pretty big Disney fan, to say the least.
Now, Nathan, we actually mentioned your podcast episode a few weeks ago talking about Galaxy's Edge in a conversation you had with an Imagineer regarding the original plans for Galaxy's Edge being original trilogy. Is that true?
Yeah, no. So I interviewed Daniel Jenkins, who used to work for Imagineering. He is freelance now, and he did bring up that at one point, at least, I don't know how far into the process at all, but they were in consideration of using the original trilogy for Galaxy's Edge.
Bet they wish they had now.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk in this episode. We're gonna talk about Galaxy's Edge. We're gonna talk about Disney World. We're gonna talk about maybe the attendance, what's coming up for Universal or Hurricane Dorian, whatever comes up, and we're just gonna have a conversation with Nathan Hartman.
Okay.
And I'm happy to have it. I'm excited, guys. This is fun.
All right. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so already. We hit almost 60,000.
We're so close.
60,000 this week. Oh, thank you so much. And we're hoping to hit 100,000 by the end of the year. We'll see if it's possible. I don't know if it's possible, but we're
better be.
We're
you better
going
make
for
it possible. Dang
we're going for it. Geeky wants her play button.
I
right?
do.
So, all right, Nathan. So, yeah, you survived Hurricane Dorian.
I mean, yeah, it never really showed up here in Orlando and the surrounding Tampa-Lando area. So it was not much of an issue for us. You always prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And this time, at least in our area, we got the best.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we have a lot of friends down there.
Yeah, we
so
do.
We're kind of worried about it, but it always seems that way. And I mean, not to minimize the destruction elsewhere, but it always seems like by the time it gets to Orlando, it's sort of like done. You know,
Or it's not as bad.
It's not as bad.
Except Irma. Irma was pretty rough.
Yeah.
More along the lines because of power and wind and things of that nature. And that was, my wife and I had moved here. Gosh, it had been, I think it had been like 3 months that we had been here. And it was like, I just started my job. I'm a film professor full time. And it was like week 1 of teaching. And it was like, hey, we're canceling classes for a week because there's a hurricane coming. And so it was learning kind of really fast. But the one thing that is interesting about hurricane season, and if things are sort of coming and going near Orlando, is the parks just empty out. And it can be a lot of fun, honestly, because it feels like it's 1985. There's just like there's that level of crowds. And you get to enjoy that for a couple days overall. So there's a little, very, very small sliver for a Disney fan of good when it comes to the hurricane season.
Yeah, we had one of our friends down there. I think it was right before.
Yeah, he went down deliberately because I think he did because he knew it was going to be low crowds.
Yeah, he's from Boston. He went down, and I think Toy Story Mania was like a 10-minute wait. Something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I walked on everything. He's like, it was great. I just went road tower terror like 3 times in a row, you know?
Yeah, during Irma, I remember being in Fantasyland and literally doing kind of a 360 and looking around by the carousel. And I saw about, I want to say 20 people total.
Yeah,
I mean,
you don't see that normally. So.
No, and it was the day before the hurricane. I mean, it was hours away.
Yeah.
And it was just very interesting to see such a quiet park. And I think it was like, I don't know, 11 a.m. It wasn't even that early or anything. So it's a really strange sort of, I don't know, I Am Legend-esque sort of thing to be like completely almost alone, or at least completely alone when it comes to when you're at Disney. It feels like that in such a place, but it's an interesting experience to say the least.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that the damage was minimal to Orlando, definitely, and everyone got through it there anyway safely. So Dorian occurred at the same time the other big hurricane occurred, which was Hurricane Galaxy's Edge, which is supposed to bring
that was the eye of the storm.
That was the eye of the storm. Supposed to bring massive crowds to Walt Disney World. Now, we did have some friends down there doing some correspondence for us that they were there opening day, and it was relatively busy, but then by the end of the day...
Our other friend was there
at like 6 o'clock. He's like, yeah, it took me like an hour to get on Smuggler's Run. So what were your impressions at Disney World versus maybe what happened in Disneyland?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always different when you get to be on the ground. And we were there about 4 a.m., and they had already started letting people in, and it was not supposed to open until 6. And my wife and I did some stuff. We of course, immediately got in line for Smuggler's Run. It was about a 3.5-hour wait, and I don't really have a problem with that. I feel like one time in your life you have to go through an entire queue and like kind of live with it and experience it in full. Like I've only done Pandora, the full queue, or not Pandora, but Flight of Passage once. And it's just an experience. It's part of that experience. So that wasn't too bad. I didn't really think that was a problem. But yeah, later in the day, it was about down to, I think, 2 hours. And then, of course, the next couple of days with the hurricane and everything coming, things were down to anywhere between 90 minutes and 50 minutes for it. And yeah, it was massively crowded at 4 a.m. for sure.
Yeah.
And then things started to disperse, and it's quite a large land too, so it really holds people well. Yeah, I could definitely see it days later that there was changes, like in the sense of crowd level. And I think there's multiple factors for that. I mean, I know that like many people are talking about right now how Galaxy's Edge some are calling it a failure. I mean, basically. And I'd like to sort of adjust my perspective a little bit and say, from an artistic perspective, it's not a failure. Like it's very beautiful. It's interesting. There's narrative. They're doing things that they've never done before. And we don't even know necessarily how it all fits together, because I feel like this massive chapter, which is Rise of the Resistance, is not open yet. And that's like, it's literally like sort of having all of your icing and none of your cake yet. So I think that from an artistic perspective, it's interesting. Whether you like that it's not, original trilogy, or you don't like that it's a land that you knew from a movie or whatever, it's still artistically very well done. It's very immersive and fun. Because if I don't look at it like that, if I'm just looking at attendance numbers, then I'm basically Disney management, and I don't want to think like that all the time. But I want to see how they think, and so it's not a surprise to me that they're upset necessarily with the crowds, but it's their own fault. I mean, I don't think there's any way around the fact that Disney's currently been doing this thing where they sort of oversell, and I don't know why. They're Disney. The park is full all the time. People are coming in droves to see stuff, and even if it's just tradition, they're always there, right? So how cool would it have been if we would have seen all this construction? D23 rolls around a couple years ago, they say nothing. And then there's more construction, and we go, oh, this is definitely Star Wars, but they say nothing. And then they say nothing. And they show no concept art. And then all of a sudden they just say, hey guys, it's open. I think our entire perspective on what this land could be and should be, would change drastically. But they set these expectations that this is the greatest thing they've ever done. We can't believe how amazing this is. Let's do a bunch of interviews. Here's all this concept art, which means, all the concept art that has no budget constraints at all. And so we learn things like meet and greet characters walking around and robots walking or rolling around and all of this stuff. And then when we don't get it, we're like, well, what the heck? That was the plan. What's going on? I just wish they'd be a little more quiet. Like there is a genius to saying less. And I think it would have served them best in this scenario.
Yeah, I can't remember now. See, I was a Disneyland kid. My childhood I split between Pennsylvania and California. And we went to Disneyland every summer. And I remember when Star Tours opened, nobody knew it was coming, really. It just kind of happened. Like, oh, by the way, here's a commercial for Star Tours. There's a Star Wars ride in Disneyland. Come on down. Yeah. I was like, what? What? And it was as simple as that. Or like Splash Mountain. You didn't even know Splash Mountain opened until they had that doofy Wonderful World of Disney.
Jim Varney, back up.
Yeah, the Ernest special.
Yeah. And it was like, oh, they got a new ride, But now, I think with the internet, you have people following every move, everything
it's a different time
they
now.
do, and of course you've got a lot of armchair Imagineers that are like, well, if I were in charge, I would do X, Y, Z thing.
Well, if I were in charge, I wouldn't have waited months later to open Rise of the Resistance.
That
absolutely,
was a huge tactical blunder.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know why they did it. They wanted to get that revenue on the books. They wanted to have something to compete with Hagrid, but I think
and they wanted to get it right. I think that's key. It has been having some issues, and it's a massive undertaking as a ride. So I'd rather them get it right than the lines be Hagrid style the first couple of weeks. So
yeah,
I don't know. I go back and forth.
So how have the crowd levels been since Galaxy's Edge opened?
I mean, things are like overall. Do you mean like in all of Disney World or just Galaxy's Edge overall?
Well, we'll talk specifically about Galaxy's Edge, like the wait times. Okay. I actually haven't been. I know for a while it was like what, an hour and a half.
I haven't been checking. To be honest,
yeah, I think that's about right. I think it's usually like an hour and a half and maybe 2 hours sometimes, especially like the morning rush. But I don't think that's a problem necessarily. Like you are in a slump. Like this is sort of like the main not so scary parties. Like the first several have happened already. So the crowd that's coming for Halloween stuff, a lot of them have already showed up. The diehards, and if they were going to go do Galaxy's Edge, that's when they would have done it. And Christmas is around the corner. So there's always a slight slump here, at least in my feeling. I have no data to back myself up. This is just a gut feeling. But from what I've seen living here, it always sort of feels like, okay, and that's why they start Food and Wine when they do. And like there's a hope to sort of fill a gap a little bit between the seasons. And I think you have to take that into play. And I think they thought like, oh, well, this will fix everything. And I remember we had conversations like, gosh, this is going to be like every hotel is going to be full and like it's going to be miserable. The parks are going to be miserable.
Yeah.
And it's not happening. I do remember having one conversation where I said, we sort of stopped and got quiet. And I said, but what if it doesn't happen? Like, what if people just don't show up? And I think that they will. I think Christmas is when we're going to go, oh gosh, like this is like, there's crazy Christmas, but this is insane. And I think that's when we're going to start seeing it. People are waiting for Rise to open. People are waiting for Runaway Railway to open. Like if they're going to go and they're going to go once in the next 4 years, they're going to wait till everything's open. So this is, in many ways, this is still previews. Like that's how I look at it anyway. Cause like literally half of your rides are closed for the whole land. So what do you expect? Like, of course you're gonna get half the audience. Like people aren't going to show up till it's done.
Yeah, and that was it was interesting. We just watched in a podcast with Pete Warner, Diz Unplugged. Now, for those of you who don't know, Pete Warner, he runs the Diz, he runs WDW Info, and he runs Dreams Unlimited Travel. He's actually the top Disney travel agency in the country. And you talk about people waiting, and he had the last like 10 or 15 minutes of their latest podcast. We were listening to it today. It was very interesting. He flat out said, this is like the perfect storm. Like Disney, I don't think was anticipating the crowd levels being this low. And he said a lot of people we're hearing are holding off on booking their trips until all this new stuff is done.
Yeah.
Well, as a real like life person, like somebody who actually goes to Disney, before we did all this, we used to go on our own and things. You don't just decide, hey, guess what? It's opening now, so I'm going to go next month. Like they have this in their head, and I've heard some of these agencies think that too, where I can just give them 2 months notice and they're going to book it. And it's like, no, people need like months of notice to book this.
Yeah, there are a lot of like Disney is dropping all kinds of offers, and they're like, hurry down to Disney World, and it's like that's great. Real people need to plan for months ahead of time. They need to take off of work. They need to save money. It's great for, I guess, the independently wealthy that don't have a set schedule, but like, right. Families, I mean, sometimes they only go, like you were saying, like, once every few years.
Or you have to ask off for work, and sometimes, you use your vacation days already or whatever. Yeah. So, people can't just drop, and go.
Yeah, I used to, with the travel agency we used to work with, I used to tell them, I'm like, if you're going to get somebody there for Halloween, you need to start marketing to them in like December, the previous year or January, because that's how long the lead time is. I think for a lot of people. They didn't
listen to us, but
Yeah, but I mean, I think we kind of saw that with Star Wars. Like they really waited. I think they waited too late to tell people when it was going to open, so they weren't.
People kind of knew, but they were surprised about Florida because everybody thought it was going to be later than that.
Yeah, I kept hearing January 2020 was what I was hearing. People, but that is that jives with what's going on with the other attraction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing is like to a lot of people, it's still not open.
Yeah.
Like it's there, but it's not open. It's not done. So like, why would you spend thousands of dollars to go to a place where there's 2 massive rides that are about to open in the next year? Like, why would you waste that money? Like, you would wait it out until like you're going to get the best time for, or the best, I'm trying to think of the phrasing. Just you would get the best for your dollar, and I think that people are just waiting, and I think that's okay. I don't think it's see, that's the thing is, there's a lot of, when we say these terms like failure and like it's a catastrophe and all of this, like that's sort of Disney, like how Disney thinks, and like clearly that's not a great way to think about things. Like it's not necessarily super helpful if you have like, we are crowding the parks all the time, and now we're gonna open this new land and we're gonna like crowd them even more, and that's what we want. Like, why would you want that? Like, wouldn't you want people to go when it's like this? I would love if it was like this all the time, and it was a little more sparse and thought out by, just like everyone goes during certain seasons because people get off time and things like that, and I understand that, and I don't want people to not go. I'm not saying that either, but it's like, if we always rate things based on how Disney thinks of success, then we can't also say that we disagree with Disney. So you got to sort of pick one or the other sometimes.
Yeah, Disney, I'm not really sure, and I guess Pete's point in this podcast, which is very interesting, again, hearing from, like the top agent in the country, was like, I don't think they expected this. I think they thought they were going to open, both of these lands, and that they weren't going to be able to, maintain the crowd levels.
Well, Iger even said, we don't have to even advertise this. And it's like, well, I guess you did.
But he's also worried, because he's worried there's going to be, a recession next year. There's been a lot of talk about that.
I think a lot of people are going to wait too till the 50th anniversary. Because if you're going to go, you're going to and you might only get to go every 2 or 3 years. You're going to go for that.
Exactly.
So I think next year is going to be interesting too. I think if you want to go because you just want to go, I'd go now or next year, because I think the crowds are going to be less. But by the 50th, I think we're going to be back up.
Yeah, I think if you can handle the construction, because look, it's Disney World's been a nonstop construction zone now for the last couple of years,
and keep going.
And but yeah, I'm with you. Like, I like the light crowds. We went in, was it February of last year?
I don't remember. They had one together.
It was early February. We were there for the Festival of the Arts, and the crowd levels were insane. We waited 45 minutes to get onto the People Mover. I'm like, in February.
I was like, what?
I'm like, what? Like, this season, the People Mover's not even a ride.
It's a ride. I like that one, thank you.
I love the People Mover.
It's a casual ride. Most people don't think about going on it. So when you have a 45-minute wait for a ride, people kind of go, oh, yeah, that's a thing. For some people. Don't get me wrong, I'm a diehard.
Oh, yeah, I love
the casual. The casual's not normally thinking about it. And if that's 45 minutes with those people already there, yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Which, we kind of speculated. I'm like, does the internet maybe play into that? Do people... because everybody's like, oh, go in February, the crowd levels are low. So then everybody goes, the crowd calendar. So everybody goes in February, and then it's like, whoa, what happened? Everybody's here. But now it's like, oh, don't go when all this new stuff opens, because it's going to be crazy busy and food and wine. Don't go then. Don't go then. So nobody goes. So they didn't.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe there's just something broken here, as far as...
Just go whenever you want. It's going to be busy no matter what, except for now.
Yeah, it's ebb and flow. And I now we can have a completely different conversation if in Christmas crowds are still even medium. If crowds are medium, oh my gosh, this is a real problem.
Yeah.
But as I always say, attendance problems at Disney are benefits to me because I live close. So I don't know. I'm okay with this multi-billion-dollar company not having the park to the gills. I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
They'll be okay. So
I don't blame you. I'd be too.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I think Universal is starting to pull, again, coming down to, I guess, the dollars and cents of it, because there's been a lot of talk lately that maybe Disney has
priced people out too much.
Priced a lot of people out, which was their intention. Again, to keep the crowd levels low, they were like, well, let's...
Yeah, but like they said, if that was the case, why send all these special offers to get the crowds back up?
Because they overcorrected.
They overly
corrected. I'm going to put that in quotes. So I got to wonder, because Universal was having all kinds of crazy deals this summer. Actually, your sister's down there now at Universal, and they've had some, really good deals for families. And I got to wonder if, they were just kind of hanging back watching Disney and be like, oh, yeah, you keep jacking your rates up, and we're going to come in and drop ours just to, take your people. Because, maybe that's where the 10-hour 10-hour lines for Hagrid, came
Well,
from.
and it kept breaking.
Well,
so,
yeah, we heard that.
Yeah.
It was like it was down as much as it was up. But
Well, and the same goes for SeaWorld. Like SeaWorld is doing better last year than they've ever done, like since they had their big old slump. And that's because they're getting people who like it's a fun park and people like it, and the ticket is not exorbitant. Like it's possible to go there with a family of 5. And yeah, the people are taking alternatives because they still want to go to Florida, and they would like, maybe they do one day at Disney, but they're not doing like 5 days and staying at a resort like they used to.
Yeah, well, I mean, because we were pricing at, like, when we first started going, you could take a family of 4 for $2,000, $2,500.
It was less than that. It was like
I think we had trips
17.
that were less than that. Now we're like, okay, now just to get in the park, you're talking $4,500, $5,000.
Yeah,
That's not much of it.
So it's definitely changed. But I mean, a lot of that comes with them growing, changing, adding things. So I gotta ask your thoughts because we haven't really had a chance to talk about too much. Epcot at D23.
Right.
We're kind of grimacing here. Some of the changes that were announced some were expected and some of them were not exactly expected, and they didn't waste any time. They got the walls thrown up already. They're knocking stuff down. Fountain of Nations is gone.
Well, it's there, but it's going to be gone.
Yeah.
It's turned off.
Turned off. And people have been asking for changes to come to Epcot, for them to give Epcot a little TLC, but I mean, I personally was not expecting the massive amount of change that they're gonna do to it.
Yeah,
Kiki's kind of nodding her head like.
I'm just listening to you guys.
I'm okay with it. Like I really am. Like not like we can get picky about stuff, but that park, especially Future World, which is what really they're doing a lot of work in more than anything else, is. I mean, Future World is really dismal. Like it is really old, like Windows 95 looking old. Like it's just it's not great, and it certainly doesn't look retro. They've done enough changes over time that it all feels like 89 to 96 opposed to even feeling sort of like early mid 80s. It's just a real hodgepodge, and so I'm fine with them doing stuff overall. I think that like you have to have that. And recently I wrote an editorial for WDWNT where I do some writing on. I'm a video content producer, and my podcast comes out of their network. And I was just talking about, like, I think a lot of people think of Epcot and they sort of say like, man, Epcot Center, right? That ideology is dead. Like it's gone, and we're getting in its place all these IPs, and like, oh my gosh, this is the worst. And my sort of thesis in the editorial is that like Epcot's entire history is based on compromise. Marty Sklar and John Hinch took 2 different worlds, Future World and World Showcase, and said, well, we can't make 2 parks. And literally pushed them together on a table and said like, well, we can make that work. So let's do that. So like from the start, like there's been compromise. And then you have, things that people love, things that I love, right? Universe of Energy and things like that. And they're like, oh man, like that's the best. And like, it was the peak of education and theme park. I'm not saying it wasn't. Hold on. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, the Universe of Energy was sponsored by Exxon. Like it wasn't exactly pure. Like it was very much manipulated by the money sponsors would give. If people hate the idea that Dreamfinders gone, don't blame Disney, blame Kodak. Like Kodak made that choice, and Disney was like, well, we don't have the money. Yeah, there's a time when this company wasn't worth billions, right? Like we don't have the money. So if we're going to do something, like Kodak's going to have to pay for it. So for me, this idea that like, oh man, all this is bad, and like I wish like it was what it used to be. I don't know. I love the educational aspects, and my heart will hurt if we lose more and more of that. But at the same time, it is not like this is suddenly one massive shift in the ideology of the park. It's just sort of the final chisel of taking away that leftover sort of aesthetic and early kind of planning. And that's, I don't know. You can disagree with it or not, but it's evolution. And I think the thing people have a problem with more than anything is we're talking now about a company that is $1 billion company. They could, if they wanted to, because now they're not doing sponsors at all, make them the educational attractions that that Epcot always wanted to have, right? This could be Epcot Center, 2.0, fully realized in a way that we've never seen before. But instead, they realize, yeah, but people still want to see characters, and they want to come and see characters. So, like, if Cosmic Rewind, right? If Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind has some sort of educational element, awesome. I don't expect it, but I'm trying not to already dismiss all these things that they're doing until I actually witness them and say, okay, yeah, there's literally no educational component. So my fingers are crossed because I'm hopefully optimistic, but at the very least, I'm getting all this really cool looking stuff that's going to bring some extra life to the park.
So, Geeky, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I just they need to do something. I mean, it's so bad now. They have to do something. And I am happy they're bringing the retro fountain back.
Yeah.
I was very excited about that. Love that. I remember that.
And the symbols. All the symbols are coming back.
I remember that too.
We were reporting the other day, and we were on Living with the Land, and the signs for Food and Wine that are in Living with the Land now have the land symbol back on them.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, I can't complain with that. So maybe they're going to find this happy balance with enough nostalgia that we can kind of forgive certain things.
That's what I'm hoping for.
I think a few. Let's see. Okay, we'll talk about your role here in reporting on Disney and the different things you do. I was at a media event in May, and we got to hear a bit of Epcot Forever, the music from it, and it's again talking about throwback, and I kind of wonder if they're doing this because they know there are some people that are not going to be happy with all the major changes, so they're trying to, I guess, throw a bone to the classic fans. But have you heard anything from that? Because what I heard was every Epcot theme song ever.
I mean, they played a little bit at, I think if I remember correctly, they played a little bit at D23 as well. And it's what everybody wants, right? And the thing that I think people are concerned with is this a celebration of Epcot and now the next step, the next stage of this evolution, or is this literally just the funeral? Is this the funeral?
Exactly. Yes, that's what
we don't
know.
So is this the memorial service? Before you bring out Harmonious, which is the worst title.
That is the stupidest title. When I heard that, I'm like, that's what you came up with, Harmonious. I think I even said that in the article. I'm like, this is stupid.
I'm gonna tell you what, unless Harmonious is absolutely stellar, from what I heard of Epcot Forever, people are gonna love that show and they're gonna demand that one come back. I think that's I think it's gonna kind of backfire. I think that placeholder show is gonna be so good and trigger so many positive memories for people that they're gonna be we don't really care about the other one. Just bring the old stuff back with one little spark.
Change everything else, but bring us that music. Dang it.
Yeah. You might see a seasonal that might come back seasonally or something, when they need to do some sort of adjustments or maintenance or whatever on the bigger show. I think that it's smart to have that in their back pocket and people like it. So it's sort of, it could be an electric light parade for Epcot in that sense of oh, remember this thing you love? Here it is again. So, and that might be it. So we'll see. Yeah.
Limited time magic.
Well, the last time we're doing it, but it's not. So
until we need it again, then it'll come out again.
Yeah. So maybe.
They always play the electrical parade card.
Yeah, the attendance is down. Hurry, it's the major electrical parade.
It's amazing. We dusted them off. They were just out last year, but we dusted them off again, and we're never going to retire. Never going to retire this parade. Okay, so Nathan, you are the chief cook and bottle washer, I guess, for the Dreamfinders podcast. Yeah,
that's my baby. So I produce it and I edit it and I do all the interviews and I host it and it's my whole thing. Yeah, it's all me.
Cool. So how long have you been doing that? How long have you been covering Disney, and how did you get into all of that?
Yeah. So to give some history, my family was a Magic Kingdom family. We went kind of almost every other 4 years or so. I think it was about 4 years. And I had a great uncle that lived in Orlando. So we'd stay with them and then we'd do one day at Disney and one day at SeaWorld or, that sort of thing. And so I had a couple instances where I went. And then in college, I was dating someone who was an avid fan as well. And she also ended up being a cast member and doing characters. And so I got to go for spring break and finally do the other parks that I had not had an opportunity to do. And that sort of really revved my engine of I really like this. And that thing where you sort of as a kid, you're like, that's cool. And then you sort of leave it behind. And then some things you pick back up. And so I sort of picked it back up, and the other thing that really kind of connected me, and it's probably the most major thing, was back in high school. Even before that, I read David Koenig's book Mouse Tales, which is, I had him on the podcast, and he's a really, really nice guy. And his book is just about like Disneyland and the history of Disneyland, but also all the stuff that no one tells you, like deaths and accidents and all of this. Ooh. And I was like, what? This happens? Like, this is amazing. Because you never think about the parks that way. And so that sort of laid a seed. And then later on in college, I started to rethink about that kind of stuff. And after that, I ended up, things didn't work out with my cast member girlfriend, but I ended up getting married, and we ended up moving down here when I took a job as a film professor. And I had already went with my wife once before. We had come down and done the parks. But I was like, okay, now, like, one of my main selling points, was like, oh yeah, I'm an hour away from Disney. I can go whenever I want. So the last, I guess it's been 3 years almost. I've had the blessed opportunity really, to just visit and enjoy and kind of dig in to the parks in a way that I've never been able to, and experience them in a way that's unrushed. And I also, there was a calling for podcasters, people to be panelists for WDWNT shows from WDWNT.com. And I applied, and my bachelor's is, I have two bachelors. I have a bachelor's in broadcasting and one in film studies. And then I'm a film professor, I said, full time. So like, I kind of had the resume, and I had done some stuff. And so they said, yeah, we'd love to have you. And so I started doing panelist stuff, and I got more involved. And now and then I'll try for a while there, I was doing a ton of cupcakes over at Sprinkles and reviewing those. It was like my niche for 5 months or whatever. And I was just happy to have like a reason to get to the parks and enjoy it and that sort of stuff. And then one time I was in PhilharMagic, and Donald went past your head, as he always does, and lands in the wall behind you, and then his feet is there in the wall, and then they fall through. And there was this little kid that was sitting next to me, and he sort of, his mouth was like completely open, and he turned to his mom and he just said, like, it's real. It's all real. And like, I was like, that's fascinating. We don't, especially when you're busy and at the parks and you're doing your own stuff, you don't think about it. But when you're an AP and you have that time to sort of experience other people's enjoyment, I started thinking about like, well, what is this culture of Disney? Like, how are we as fans, and like how do we experience it? How does that affect our artistic creativity and what we do? And between that and Disney Twitter, like I knew a lot of people who were doing awesome Disney World art and Disneyland models, and like everyone's doing stuff. And I thought, it'd be really fun to like talk to these people. There's other podcasts that do Imagineers and that sort of stuff, and the history. And I'd love having Imagineers on. I've had great ones. We just had Kevin Rafferty, who's like a major player still at Disney, and his autobiography just got released, and it's amazing. So I've talked to those people too, and I love it when I do. But like, I've had great conversations with people who, they write poetry. There's a lady from Britain who writes poetry about Disney, and she came on and read some poetry. And there's, a voice actor who's amazing at impersonations of Disney characters and goes to the parks and does the voices for the characters to them, and then gets their reactions.
Yeah, my kids love watching him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Ryan Hall. And then like Some Jerk with a Camera, if you know his work on YouTube, like I had him on and talked about like his shows about Disney, and the TGIF goes to Disney sort of block and all those episodes. He did an amazing trilogy, and it was more than a trilogy. It was like several episodes, kind of in depth and analyzing those episodes of TV. And I just like, I want to talk to these people. Like, I want to know why they do it. Like, why am I? And I thought if I can find out why they're obsessed with Disney, I can maybe understand more why I'm obsessed with Disney. And it's been a really fun time. I've been at it for a little less than a year. We started January 1st of this year. And so we are, gosh, I don't even know at this point. I'm between me interviewing people and then editing episodes. I don't even know the count, but we've had several dozen at this point episodes, and it's been fun to talk to all sorts of people about Disney on Dreamfinders, and it's been a real blessing to me.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I know. We know a lot of people that move down there, and they get to kind of live out their Disney dream. Yeah.
Yep.
It's so different too. It really is when you get to just breathe. And like my wife and I are going to Magic Kingdom on Saturday, and we're going to go in the morning, and we'll get coffee, and we'll walk around, and we'll do our 3 fast passes, and then we'll probably leave because like you can do that.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant. It's a wonderful way to like do Disney. Like especially if you have young kids, we don't have kids yet, but if you have young kids, and I know people in the area that do, like when your kid starts acting up, you just go home. It's not a problem. You come back later. So there's no meltdowns necessary. So it's a real unique circumstance, but I'm happy to have it.
That's cool. Yeah, when we were covering Disney, I mean, yeah, we kind of get in that mode too, where you don't feel rushed because if you only go like once every other year or once every couple of years, you're like, we have to ride everything. We have to go. We have our itinerary. Da 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 da. But when we were like, well, yeah, we'll be back next month or whatever. Like
next week or whatever.
Next week, I mean,
our kids to be tour guides at Disney.
Yeah, so we were just kind of at the point where it's like, well, what do we want to do the most? I mean, there was one time we stayed in the hotel most of the weekend. We didn't even really go to the parks that much.
Oh, that was when we did the run, but I also hurt my feet.
Well, it's true. But yeah, I mean, I get you there where it's kind of like, when you can go whenever you want to, and you go often, it is a very different experience.
It's a lot more chill.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And like right now, I love construction over at the Guardians of the Galaxy coaster because that whole side of Epcot is empty. And I just go over there and I sit on that bench and I read and I watch the monorail go by, and it's great. Like it's a fun afternoon to just use Epcot as a park. Like it really is. And that's 100% only something people do if they have that, like they live here, because you just don't have the time. You wouldn't even consider it.
Yeah, you can tell the people too. Like you look around and you'll see the people that are like grabbing their kids and running for the rides, and then you'll see some folks that are just like, I'm gonna go sit in this bench. And so 100%. It's like a totally different vibe, and that's why I love Disneyland too. Like I've been in Disneyland so much. Last time I was there by myself, I was just like, I'm just gonna sit on Main Street with my coffee, and I called you and just sat there and watched the carriage go by and whatever. I'm like, I've been here so many times, like it's not going anywhere. I'll be back.
You're by yourself too. Single rider line.
Single rider line.
100%.
It's Disneyland on a weekday. You can walk on to pretty much anything if you're a single rider. So I was just like, yeah, whatever. Go catch tiki birds or something, and so it's pretty chill, and that's a very different experience, from the kind of harried pace. Now you do work with WDW News Today. You want to talk about that and how you came
he kind of did a little bit, but he could talk.
I mean, I just had the opportunity, and they were looking for people, and I was just a good fit because I have a lot of my shelves are full of Disney books now and the history of stuff, and I enjoy that cultural kind of touchstone, and so it's fun to get to talk about it, and I've made some genuine friends through that. So not only do I come on now and then to our talk show, which is every Thursday night, called WDW News Tonight, which Tom Corliss hosts, and I kind of pop into the studio now and then and do some sketches and whatever. It's a lot of fun. But every week on our YouTube channel, I'm on Park Center, which is basically Sports Center for Parks News, and so I'm a featured panelist on that, and so we do that every Wednesday night at 9, and that's been fun too. Those people, because I get to talk to them every week, it's like this, consistent group. But also, like, our Slack channel is a blast because news comes out and we're immediately talking about stuff. And sometimes we're talking about it before we've told anybody else what the news is because we're working on it. So it can be a lot of fun that way, and there's a lot of great people. I think. Sometimes people think of WDWNT and then they definitely think of Tom, and 100% I get that. But in the last several years, the site has really flourished, and there's a lot of us now. We have reporters in Disneyland. We have a reporter in Tokyo. We have at least 2 reporters at all times in the parks every day. We have a bunch of people on staff, and so it's this really big wonderful crew of people have all sorts of different temperaments and thoughts and experiences with the parks, and so it's been a lot of fun to hear other people's stories and sort of their viewpoints on things. So it's nice to have that kind of group. Yeah, no, that's cool, because I remember I started listening to WDWNT the podcast. I want to say 2008, 2009.
It's a wow.
It's been a long time, and I remember telling Geeky This is before we started, going to Disney World like all the
Well,
time.
see, I grew up going. You didn't.
No,
so.
I went to Disneyland, so that's where we were different. I never went to Disney World until I was an adult.
You're worse about it than I am.
Yeah, I am actually. Yeah, but I remember listening to Tom and being like, I kind of get this guy. Like he doesn't sugarcoat stuff, And
definitely not.
And I think some people now there are a couple different ways to take that, and even like when we worked on Disney site too, where some people were like, this is cool, it's refreshing. Obviously, they're not on the take from Disney or whatever because they're giving honest opinions, and then you have other people that are like, a little too much. We used to get that sometimes too, like, oh my gosh, you're so mean. It's like, I'm not mean.
Well, that's because if you say anything's not perfect, you're mean,
Yeah, it's like I said, the food sucked. That's not being
mean. You didn't say the food sucked. You might say that one sandwich wasn't good. How dare you!
Oh my gosh, I got so much crap for. So we got to go to Toy Story Land.
You got to go to Toy Story Land.
I got to go to Toy Story Land. I got to go early, and it's the same complaint everybody else has. Said, yeah, it's okay, except for the shade. Shade's a problem.
Right.
Shade's a huge problem. Oh my gosh, people jump like. How dare you?
Yeah.
I'm like, I was hot. It was 110. I almost passed out on the Slinky Dog Dash.
It's the same excuse. Like, it's the same stuff they would say if they were like in your scenario. Like, and they do experience it. Like, and they feel it. Like, it is this weird. I don't know what it is. I think it's nerd culture in general, and I definitely consider this part of nerd culture. Has taken this weird spot, and I hate to sort of like say it like this, but I sort of feel like the more secularization that happens in culture as sort of people leave religion in some different ways, and I'm a religious person, but like people leave it, and I understand that. And but when they do that, they have to fill a void, right? There's an ideology void, and there's like finding your worth in something, and people still need that. And some people find it in like football, and I don't understand that, but people do, and other people find it in nerdy sort of stuff. And I feel like the intensity that's been ratcheted up to a great degree, and I think just sort of the mentality of whatever that like property is, they sort of glom onto that ideology. So for example, like Universal has always acted like it's this cool teen, and like it's just hanging out and it spits like in class. It's like whatever, like we're super cool, and like that's just what they do, right? Like Hollywood Horror Nights, and like that's what they do. And so people that love that, they're sort of like, yeah, like we're sort of the goths of theme park nerdery. Like we're this cool punk like team. And if you've ever seen like the film Election with Matthew Broderick and Reese Witherspoon, like Disney people are the Tracy Flicks of like the whole thing. Like we're in many ways we act like the class presidents, and it's just like we're kind of uptight about how people talk about our stuff and how we treat Disney, and like what would Walt do, and blah, like, and I think that's sometimes I have to step back, especially when people get really angry and frustrated, and I have to be like, it's just a theme park. It's okay. Like I know it means a lot. And I know you have like some very hardcore memories about the parks, but in the end, it's just a place. Like you breathe a little bit. So we feel that a lot because we are fairly honest on the site about stuff, and we never mince words. And we do have people who sort of, I don't know, they can't get around that, and that's okay. Like I just sort of say like, all right, like there are plenty of outlets that will tell you exactly what you want to hear. Like we're for other people, and in that way, like we're not media. Like we don't have media passes. Disney doesn't invite us to things because we don't play ball necessarily, and that's fine. We're like we'll try everything anyway, and we'll pay full price for it, and we'll actually tell you what you're getting at Food and Wine, opposed to the thing that like they give to the media, which is like the nicest version of that. So there's nothing wrong with if you want to follow people that are on the media list, and there's nothing wrong with that sort of thing, but it's an expectation in what you expect. So I don't know, it's totally a perspective, and the more people that want to talk honestly, like I think the people that really love the parks want to talk about it honestly and critically, and those that want to enjoy the parks exclusively, they want to just sort of enjoy it, and I don't think that's a problem. I just think that's a difference in opinion. So
yeah, that was kind of well, okay. So where we were at, we were actually, and funny you mentioned that we were on the media list before. And look, I'm not throwing shade. I get it. with PR, you don't want to invite people to your shindigs and have them say bad things.
Right, of course.
About you. That's, not the purpose, but, it is kind of frustrating, being a fan of the parks, realizing that there are some problems. It's not perfect, and especially being a consumer. Look, a Disney trip is not cheap. It's thousands of dollars for a family to go. And, we always, at least, I know Geeky and I always felt that, like, if we're going, we're going to give you an honest opinion because, look, maybe that restaurant's just not worth it. Maybe you should wait until next year. Maybe you should wait, do something. And not saying not to go. We're not being like, don't go to Disney. It's garbage. That's not what we're saying. But, like, Disney with the media, and this is me saying it, not you saying it, so you don't get in trouble because I'm off the list. But they're trying to control the story and they're trying to sell what they're trying to sell.
Of course. And that's fine.
And when you get all of these Instagrammers and all these Twitter users and all these Facebook users and all these blogs in lockstep saying the same thing, all exactly the same, all using the same hashtags, I'm really surprised that more people don't pick up on that. Like, how do we know this is legit? Because everybody's saying the exact same thing.
People are. I think people are smarter than we give them credit. I think especially, like, there's a whole generation of millennials, and I'm at the tier, like the top tier of those, the earliest probably. And like, they don't buy into, and this comes from my being a professor and sort of doing research on generation millennials and Generation Z. Like, they don't buy into commercials. You can't make them go. Like, you can't convince them. They have to just decide they want to do things. And it's gotten a lot harder for Disney, as we've been talking about overall. Like, they can't just say, like, hey, this thing's amazing, come, and then everyone's like, okay, I guess. Like people just are like, no, I got plans, like, I'll come when I come. And like, like, it's different. It's a different atmosphere. And I think the thing too is, like, people aren't, sometimes I don't think they're historically honest with themselves about, like, the company and like, they're like, wow, there's such corruption in Disney now, and that's never been the case. And it's like, Walt Disney, like he had a bunch of shell companies buy farmland from poor farmers and, like, steal it out from underneath them to build Disney World. Like the whole place is built on deception, and that's that's just corporations, and that's not a problem. Like, it's not me. Like, I'm not looking for moral answers from Disney. Like, they're a company, and that's what they do. And so, it's one of those things. I just think that sometimes, you have those people who are like, how dare you speak like this way about the company? And then you have other people that sort of lean really hard the other way, and they're like, it's all trash now, and it's never like it was, whatever. And man, I just like to live in that happy medium and try to breathe a little bit. So it's a better way to live.
It's, I think in some ways it's better to enjoy the parks and not, be as involved, I guess, in the behind the scenes.
Yeah, it was a lot more fun when we weren't doing everything.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you have to really, like, make a decision once you're part of the community and make a conscious effort to sort of, like, separate the corporation aspects from your enjoyment every day. Like that's why I like to watch people, because like not because I'm bored, but because, like, oh yeah, they don't care. Like, they're just having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that's when we talk about Galaxy's Edge, like, I hear, oh, like, this was not, who was this made for? And I'm like, here's the thing. A 7-year-old girl does not care if it's on Tatooine or Hoth or anything. Like, that's not even remotely a problem that they have. Like, they're just stoked that there's this big X-Wing and Chewbacca and Rey are working on it. Like, they don't care. Like, and so they're going to grow up with all these happy memories of a thing that, like, we, 30 plus year olds are, like, grumbling about. And it's like, in the end, like, I don't want to give Disney a pass when they do things wrong or they don't think through it, but at the same time, like, in the end, like, they are still serving basically what I think consider their core demographic, which are children that are going to grow up and bring their children. And so, in many ways, the park is no longer for me. Like, it's not, like, when you have a Descendants dance party, that's not for me. Like, it's just not. And I have to be okay with that.
It's for you, and that's for our daughter.
It's for me. It's people don't realize I got that side to me. I do all
you can't dance. I love you.
I do all the raves with all the princesses and the monsters. Actually, it was kind of weird. One of the best memories we had with our son. Actually, we're hanging out in Tomorrowland during let's see, where were we? Was
it was not so scary because I was on Space Mountain with our daughter.
Yeah, and this Monsters Inc. rave pops up around us. Like literally,
that's where it's supposed to be.
We're just standing there, and we turn around, and there's Sully like motioning for me to gyrate with him, and I'm like, this is really weird.
Plus,
this
you don't
really
gyrate.
Weird.
I love you, but you don't dance.
I jiggle more than anything. But yeah, there's so there's I mean there are definitely some good things going on. And again, I just as someone who now before we did the worked on our own theme park blog, we I worked on Disney Comics for a number of years, so we've worked in and around Disney for a while. Sure. I think I do kind of envy the people that are on the other side of it. Oh, yeah. I think because when I think it's like anything else, when it becomes a job, it sort of loses.
Yeah, but we chose to keep it a job, so
I know. That was our choice. Like, well, wait, we can go a lot more often if it becomes
actually. That's how we started doing this. He was like, we could probably get to go for free if we did this as a job, and I'm like, okay, so we did.
Yeah, so it's a job. Yeah,
it's a job.
I remember back.
That's a job.
Yeah, I remember back when I was in high school, and for a summer, I had to sort of pick a place to work, and so I ended up working at a drive-in that I really loved, right? And then I watched like how the patties were made, and like, just throw that back on. It fell on the floor, but just put it back in the fryer, right? And I was like, never work at a place that you absolutely love. Like, it's only going to taint it in some sort of way. So that's like, in that way, it's sort of strange because I don't work for Disney, but like I report on it, and so you do have a bit of a and luckily for me, I'm not doing it day to day. As I said, I'm a professor, so like I just sort of do things when I can or when I want to, and then I concentrate more on the creative aspects and the fun stuff because I can, right? Because if I had to slog it and just like deal in shareholder meetings and stuff, I would probably lose my mind. But it is a difference though. Like as with anything, like if you're going to open that Pandora's box, like you can't close it. Like it's going to open and you're going to see everything that's behind it. Much like Disney, right? Like everything looks good on the front, but like open the cast member door and go back there, and that's where the cobwebs are. So like
Cinderella's smoking, they're playing poker.
Exactly. Yeah. So like just be careful what you wish for. Yeah.
I remember the dumpsters. There's dumpsters everywhere. Anyway.
Yeah, there were. They cleaned up behind Main Street though. They put that new little section of street there. It's not.
Yeah,
it's pretty
it's
nice
great.
now.
I love that.
It's actually nice because they used to take us out. The one time we had to leave when they had the castle show. We had to leave, and they're like, "Oh yeah, don't look at the dumpsters. It's not show ready. Let's just keep on walking."
I have a funny story about that. So when Galaxy's Edge opened, we were in line for Smuggler's Run, and for some, I don't know why they did this, but there's a big door on one side, kind of near Smuggler's Run. So the Falcon's there, and then on the right, there's this big door. So they had opened the door, and the queue was sort of zigzagging backstage a little bit. Not a lot. There was nothing. They had put up trees and things around it, so you couldn't really see the parking lot. I mean, you could, but it wasn't like a thing. It did sort of take you out, but you're in a line for 3.5 hours. You're just kind of out of the vibe anyway. And like I remember taking a photo because I was just like, oh, we never get to go back here. I'll take a photo. And there was a cast member and she was like, bright suns, good. Like, how are you? And then like I took out my phone and she was like, sir, please put that away. And it was just like this really funny like dichotomy of like, oh, like you don't want me to know that this is back here, but you're forced to show it off because you need the space for the line right now because it's opening day. And it's weird. It's weird when Disney has to kind of let you in on the seams. So, but that's some of my favorite stuff, in that Mouse Tales book by David Koenig, like he talks about how a horse died on Main Street and they just had to cover it with a tarp, like, what are you going to do? You can't haul a horse out in a forklift in the middle of the day.
You think that's funny? So, I think it's sad.
I'm just picturing this horse just like laying down, falling over, and then the cast members, singing and dancing, trying to figure out how to get the dead horse off of Main Street.
Yeah.
That's just comedy gold.
That's
not for the horse, but
it's interesting. That's the thing is that's what I love the most is hearing the stories that sort of live in the middle of the seams where magic still happens, but to make that magic happen, you have to like literally know how to do the trick, right? Mm-hmm. So like there are people who do those tricks. They're the magicians, and it's interesting to hear what they do.
Yeah, I just remember you got chased at Epcot.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Okay, so this is one of the disadvantages of being like a Disney reporter is you're always trying to get pictures of things you're not supposed to have pictures of.
Right.
So in France,
It was like over more towards Morocco at that. It was at the edge of France.
it was on the other side of
the restaurant.
Yeah, that little walkway.
Right
that
before
goes
you go
in
to
there.
Morocco.
So we had a really good view, and this is when they started doing the construction for Ratatouille. I'm like, oh look, I can see Ratatouille through the trees. Let's get.
Now, he didn't go where he wasn't supposed to.
I didn't go in there.
Right.
So I'm like, let's take a picture of this. People are going to love this. So I'm trying to take a picture, and doesn't some cast member, security guy come flying out of the restaurant? I don't know where he came from. He's like hiding behind a bush or something.
Yeah,
And
they come out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's like, you got to delete that picture. I'm like, I'm deleting it right here.
No, you couldn't. You were live streaming.
Oh, I was live streaming. That's right. That's right.
I can't delete it.
I'm like, I can't delete it. It was like Wolverine in X-Men where he's like, put the knives down. I'm like, I can't. They're attached to my hands.
It's already happening.
Yeah.
It's like, it's live
But
stream.
he wasn't anywhere he wasn't supposed to be. It was like right where you were allowed to be. And then they followed us. Like,
They followed us the
clear
whole way
over
through
to
the World
you know,
Showcase.
it was over to America at least. He was
No, it was past America. It
wasn't
was like
past
Germany.
America? Was it that far? And
It
he
was
followed
the
us around.
He was
It
like following
funny.
through the crowd, and he was trying to be like nonchalant. I'm like, dude, it's on the internet. It's
And
game
I was,
over.
and you weren't
It's-
standing in a place you weren't supposed to be.
No, I wasn't even in the area. So they, so yeah, I kind of got in trouble a couple times for.
And all of that for like a C ticket rat.
No,
like,
I
ride.
know.
Like,
it wasn't hardly done yet. It wasn't like it was.
They had the
Yeah.
super
screens
much
up. They
it
had the
wasn't
screens
hide,
up with
really.
the bushes.
They
and
were
there-
just digging it up at the time.
There were some construction workers like eating a sandwich or something. Like
it wasn't even,
Yeah.
it was so funny.
And then you
though.
go ride in the people mover, and there's a big ditch where they're putting the Tron coaster.
Well, not
or
now.
something.
It's got
Yeah.
kind of big.
Yeah,
going
but
on.
I'm like,
yeah,
come
there's a lot
on.
going on now.
You know?
But yeah, that's what's so strange is like I feel like Disney's still like I don't know, like vloggers and people are always on their phones and looking at stuff and doing their like there's always someone doing something in the parks and talking to a live stream or whatever.
Mhm.
But then like now and then like some of the rules feel like it's like straight out of '94. Like it's just this weird kind of like no, you can't do that. Even if you're like as you said like just where you can see it with your eyes, like you're not doing anything, but they are kind of overly sensitive, I find. But I also think that people in general, people have gotten like more used to like, hey, I'm here and I have a camera and I'll just like take photos of whatever I want, right?
Mhm.
So they used to be like, well, no one's going to waste their film on like construction,
Right.
but now like it doesn't matter. So people are willing to just take pictures about anything.
Yeah.
My sister's down there and she was at Epcot and I was like, hey, go give me some pictures of the walls. So she did. Because I told her to take pictures of the walls.
Oh, they're gonna change it. See, this is what I got depressed about when they showed me new. Of all the things to get upset about at Epcot, I'm like, that means they're gonna change the music near Mouse Kingdom.
Yeah, that's what he's upset about.
Yeah,
is
that is
music.
my favorite music in all of Disney World.
Yeah.
I love.
I was
the
just
Epcot.
listening to that today. Yeah,
I
it's the
love it
best.
so much. And then I know they're gonna change it, and it's gonna be something.
But they got the fountain. The fountain's exciting to me.
Yeah,
I'm very excited about that.
Can't we have both? The fountain with the music.
But not both.
Yeah, it's interesting. I got to interview Bruce Broughton, who wrote most of that music, and he was actually my first episode, and really interesting guy, and like did so much. I mean, did Tiny Toons, and he did one of the Roger Rabbit shorts, and like a really amazing career. And it's interesting to hear him talk about like the sound of Epcot and how many people to come to him now, and they're like, that's my childhood, like that soundtrack is my childhood.
Yep.
And I don't think people have thought about that. Like the walls are like a big thing that people are concentrating on, but that soundscape is going to change.
Yep.
It's going to be different. And I don't know, like I think that's okay. I think you can't, I don't know, I don't think you can continue doing it forever, but at the same time it is a big part of what we love. And you could, I remember that and I think you still can. You can go into the bathrooms over at Imagination, and they're still playing the old loop.
Yeah, I think
even
they were.
pre-brought
they
there.
were. Yeah, they were.
So like, it's a weird like this. I don't know. It's just a speaker that they can't reach. I don't know why it's still playing the old loop, but people love to go in there and just listen to it.
Yeah.
sounds really important to people. So I think in many ways that's a far greater problem and tricky like creative issue than a lot of like just building things. Like if you get that sound wrong, even if it's new music and you get the sound wrong, people are gonna know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's weird that stuff that people remember, from any kind of experience, but the parks especially, certain smells, certain, not even necessarily the attractions, but there is like an emotional connection. So people do freak out when they change anything. But yeah, that was my first thought of all the things they're changing. I'm like, that means they're going to change the music.
Yeah,
"They're
that
gonna
was the
change
first thing
music."
he said.
I'm like, and you're like, "They're tearing the Fountain of Nations out." I'm like, "I know, but they're gonna change." That's my like. I like to sit outside of Mouse Gear and just listen to that music, and it's going away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be hard. I mean, you can't have a soundtrack where like a good half of it no longer exists. So
Yeah, but still, it's like it's definitely going to be an adjustment.
yeah, for sure.
So, real quick here before we go, what are your thoughts on Epic Universe? Do you have thoughts on Epic Universe? Do you think they're taking a play from the Disney playbook?
I mean, I'm very excited. Look, we're in a cold war when it comes to theme parks right now, and I only win, so I'm fine with it. The interesting thing about it is, so we had a Universal Pass for 1 year, and we went occasionally. It's amazing. Disney doesn't feel like a slog because it's like kind of on the outside of Orlando, and like Universal feels dead center. And like that last 15 minutes getting into a Universal from like the difference, you're just like, oh my gosh, this takes forever. Like it does feel like a completely different universe. No pun intended. I enjoy Universal, but we didn't renew because for me, there's not enough. And some people grew up with it, but I have no nostalgia for Universal. And I always sort of go like, I always compare it, sadly. And there's some stuff I love, like E.T., and I do think Spider-Man's one of the greatest dark rides ever created, period. And so they have these big wins, but like if they've learned lessons from doing Harry Potter, which is amazing, and Wizarding World looks great, the only issues with both of Wizarding World parts is like there's not enough space. And, the dragon should never have been put there because people like gawk at it like they're like goats looking at the rain. And like because of that, it just fills the whole place with people not moving. So I hope they learn a little bit about like moving people about. But like, yeah, we're gonna get another pass once Nintendo Land opens. Like, there's no way I'm not gonna see all of that. So I'm excited for the future of Universal, and like I think they finally recognize what they can be. Like I feel like both them and Hollywood Studios are finally going like, all right, we really truly are not doing anything studio-ish anymore. Like we just aren't. Like it's not happening. And so I wouldn't be surprised if you see even more of a rebrand at the Universal Studios proper eventually, just because like that aesthetic is going away. And this is going to be interesting because I love the aesthetics of Islands of Adventure. I think it's one of the best. But half the rides are water rides, and like it's just an overcompensation. Because if you don't want to get wet, there's very little to do at Islands of Adventure. And I think they're going to balance things out. I think they've really learned some lessons from their last two parks. So this only benefits everybody that they're doing a third. Because if that even takes some people, even if you only go to Disney, because that means there are people that are going to go to Universal one day and not when you're at Epcot or whatever. So I hope it thins out the crowds everywhere, and I have no issue with that. Do I think that means Disney's eventually going to create a fifth park? No, I don't think so. I think that they're really concentrating. If they were going to do that, like, I don't know. Call me when like they figure out like Marvel issues with Universal, then they might do a fifth park. But until that time, and that'll be forever. I think that they're going to stay where they're at for now and go that route. But yeah, I'm excited. Like, do I want to play Mario Kart and like literally be in Mario Kart? Yes, very much so.
Yeah, no, I think it's gonna be pretty cool. We were actually taking bets. We were like, I bet they announced.
Well, you were convinced.
I was convinced they were going to, and dang it, they didn't do it. I was convinced they were gonna, because they haven't officially confirmed Nintendo as being part of Epic Universe yet, but clearly it is. Looking at the concept art, I was waiting for them to confirm it during D23 weekend. Just be like, oh, you guys are bored by all the Disney Plus news? Hey, we got Mario coming. We got Mario coming to Universal. Wah, 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 and it didn't happen. I was kind of disappointed because I'm like, that would have been something I would have done.
You're sitting back going, fight.
I was, let me get the popcorn. The popcorn.
I agree. It's like, it benefits all the people who want to go to the park. So
yeah,
I'm like
definitely.
all for it. Bring it on.
I think it's going to be pretty cool. But yeah, you mentioned about Fifth Gate. We've talked about that before. I've talked to cast members down there. They don't think that, believe it or not, with all the room that Disney has, all the acreage they have, they don't know if it's even feasible to put a Fifth Gate down there with all the infrastructure and the logistics. And
I think they could figure it out. If they really wanted to, I think they could figure it out. But like they don't seem to want to, right? They're interested, especially in this current like administration. They want to do hotels. They
Yeah.
want to make sure that people are spending money, and like that's a massive investment. And why do another park here when they can do one in India, or they can do one somewhere else that it's completely untapped, right? So I think that's what we're seeing currently, is like they're much more interested in global perspective than like what's going on in California or Florida.
The fifth gates of DVC.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, it's going to be one big lounge. So just Coca-Cola freestyles as far as the eye can see.
That's right.
As long as I have Beverly, I'm happy.
They
Beverly-
don't have it now. They probably will put it back.
No, they took it. I think they took it out.
They did, but they're going to put it back. They're moving
They'll
it.
put it back.
Yes, they're
It's
moving
the
it.
only. There's only 3 other places. I think it's 3 other places in the world that make Beverly's not sold anymore, but they have it for the parks.
I would
And
buy it.
for
I would
the
buy
World
it.
of
He
Disney.
likes it.
I
But-
like it.
No, they're moving it. It's going to be back. Club Cool's coming back. It's going to be moved to different
Okay,
locations.
but they better have my Beverly and my
Yeah.
music loop. They better just play
Hey.
Just for you.
just for me personally, my own personal magic, my own personal magical experience. I'll just take
Put it on
earbuds.
your eye. Put it on your earbuds, and
it's
then
like,
you're good.
I'm gonna party like it's 1998 over here, you guys.
Well, if you
Taking my
if you want to hit Club Cool one more time, one of the things I've been doing recently is we've been doing some 360 video over at WDWNT's channel on YouTube,
Yeah, I
and
saw that.
so it's been fun because like we were able to do we did the Rocketeer Fountain of Nations, and people are just like, this is exactly what I wanted. Like, this is what I remember at Fountain of Nations. So it's really nice to be able to put people like a little more than just a video into it. So we have 5 minutes, I think, of Club Cool of just people walking around and that sort of stuff. So if you still want to relive it, grab some sort of Coca-Cola beverage that you have at home, and then there you go. I guess that's as close as you can get. You can still get Beverly, though, I should say. You can still get Beverly at Disney Springs at the World of Coca-Cola. That's
There
still
you go.
available.
There we go.
You have to pay for it, but yeah,
I
you can
don't
get it.
care. It's worth it. It's worth it.
Still there,
It's
yeah.
the most disgusting, wonderful beverage ever concocted. I love it. Okay, so speaking of which, Nathan, before we let you go, where can people find you?
Sure. Well, so me personally, I have a website. It's nathanhartman.net. But like, please come and hang out with me on Dreamfinders. You can find us on, Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or, oh my gosh, we're pretty much everywhere. So iHeartRadio, and like we're everywhere. And yeah, I've talked to so many wonderful Imagineers and fans and people, and each episode's about an hour long roughly, and it comes out every other week. So it's if you like fresh air on NPR, it's basically that for Disney nerds. So it's a really fun conversation, and we've had a blast, and I'm excited to keep doing it. So come and join me there. And then now and then, of course, I also do some writing, and you can see that on WDWNT.com. And then I do Park Center, which is our, as I said, sort of our sports center parks panel show. And that's Wednesday nights at 9:00 Eastern here on good old YouTube over at the WDWNT page. So that's all my stuff.
Awesome. Well, I will put links to those in the description of this video. And thank you so much, Nathan, for coming on and talking to us about Disney parks.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I'd love to come back. It's been so much fun.
Thank you so much for watching Clownfish TV, everybody. We're going to wrap this one up. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Goodbye. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.